Welcome back to NT Coins World, the place where history meets numismatics, and where ordinary pocket change could turn into extraordinary treasure. In today's video, we're taking a deep dive into two Lincoln cents that at first glance might seem common, but hold the potential for tremendous value if you know what to look for. First up, we've got a 1964 D Lincoln cent in fine condition, and then we'll slide seamlessly into a 1989 Lincoln cent, also in fine condition, that could be worth far more than its face value under the right circumstances. So stick around, because this episode could help you identify a penny worth thousands. Let's start with the 1964 D Lincoln cent. Now, this coin may appear like just another old penny, but there's so much more to it. It was minted in Denver, that's what the D mint mark stands for, during a time of transition and controversy within the US Mint. The year 1964 marked the end of the 90% silver era for dimes, quarters, and half dollars. But for the humble cent, it was more about production surges and minting pressures than metallic composition. The coin was struck in a bronze composition, 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc, and it carries the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Now, here's something astonishing. Over 3.7 billion, 1,964 D Lincoln cents were minted, making it one of the most heavily produced coins in US history. So naturally, collectors might assume it's far too common to be valuable, but that's only partially true. You see, it's not about how many were made, it's about how few were made with special, rare characteristics that were never intended to leave the mint. This is where things get exciting. One of the most desirable features in any Lincoln cent is an era or variety, and the 1964 D Lincoln cent has its fair share. There are a few key varieties and eras you'll want to keep an eye out for if you're hunting for value. One of the most talked about varieties is the 1964 DD/DRPM, which stands for Repunched Mint Mark. This variety occurs when the D mint mark was punched more than once, at slightly different angles or positions, creating a doubling effect that can be seen under magnification. These repunched mint marks were fairly common in the 1960s due to the hand-punching process, still in use at the time, but finding one in strong detail and uncirculated condition can bring impressive premiums. Another major point of interest is the 1964 D double die obverse, although extremely rare. Some collectors have reported minor doubling on the date and the word Liberty, but these are very subtle and often confused with machine doubling, which does not carry the same value. A true doubled die results from a misalignment in the hubbing process when the design is being impressed into the die. When you find a strong, confirmed double die example, you're looking at serious money, especially in mint state, where values can soar into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, $2,000 to $5,000 range, or higher, depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling. Even in fine condition, coins with strong RPM or double die errors can fetch between $50 to $200, and some even more if certified by a reputable grading company like PCGS or NGC, but we're not just talking about errors. Another overlooked factor is color and luster. A red-colored 1964 D Lincoln cent, even in slightly circulated condition, can be valued significantly higher due to its eye appeal and rarity in that color state over time. Let's not forget the historical context. The 1960s were a time of immense change in the United States, socially, politically, and economically. The mint was under tremendous pressure to produce coins for a growing economy and population. So many 1964 dated coins were made in that year and in early 1965 that it led to legislation banning mint marks temporarily from 1965 to 1967. That makes 1964 D a sort of end-of-an-era coin, the last Denver minted cent before the short mint mark freeze. So to recap, and while the average 1964 D Lincoln cent in fine condition may only be worth face value, if yours has an RPM or rare double die, or if it's in extraordinary original color, you could be looking at hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially if authenticated. Now let's transition to a coin that's far more modern But no less surprising, the 1989 Lincoln cent in fine condition. When most people think of valuable pennies, they think of those made before 1982, when copper was still king. But there are later-date Lincoln cents that are turning heads in the collecting world too, and 1989 is one of them. First, let's talk composition. In 1989, the Lincoln cent was made of copper-plated zinc, 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, a change that started in mid-1982 due to rising copper costs. These post-1982 coins are lighter and have different striking characteristics which can sometimes lead to unique and valuable mint errors. The 1989 Lincoln cent was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark. Over 7.2 billion of the Philadelphia cents were minted that year. So again, the sheer volume makes this coin seem utterly ordinary. But don't let that fool you. Hidden among those billions are a few elusive treasures. Let's start with one of the most intriguing varieties, the 1989 doubled die reverse. Although not officially listed in all reference guides, several varieties have been identified and authenticated by experts, showing doubling in the inscriptions United States of America, a pluribus unum, and 1 cent. The doubling is usually strongest on the reverse columns and lettering, and examples in high grade, especially MS65 and above, can bring values in the $100 to $700 range, with exceptional pieces selling for over $1,000 at auction. Now here's where it gets even better. The Holy Grail of 1989, Lincoln cents is the 1989 D copper transitional error. That's right. A few rare 1989 D cents were mistakenly struck on copper planchets instead of the standard zinc-coated planchets. These rare transitional errors occur when leftover copper planchets from earlier years somehow remain in the production line and get struck with the wrong date. In this case, a 1989 D copper cent would weigh around 3.11 grams instead of the typical 2.5 grams for post-1982 cents. Only a handful of these have ever been found and verified, and their market value, a certified 1989-D copper transitional error, can command up to $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the condition. That's life-changing money from a coin most people wouldn't look twice at, so if you have a 1989 D cent, especially one that feels heavier than usual, weigh it. You might be holding on to a major rarity. Let's not forget the off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks that also plague, or rather bless, some 1989 cents. These errors are more common on zinc coins due to the brittleness of the planchets, but when dramatic, they can bring in anywhere from $50 to $500 depending on how visible and unusual they are. Coins with more than 50% off-center strikes showing a full date are highly prized and can bring even more, especially if they're in excellent shape. What's interesting about 1989 cents is that despite their modernity, the zinc composition makes them prone to corrosion and surface bubbles. Finding one in fine condition is relatively easy, but finding one without those common blemishes, in red or red-brown color and free of zinc rot, adds a premium to the coin's desirability. Collectors seeking a full set of zinc-era cents often struggle to find pristine examples from high production years like 1989, where quality control wasn't a priority due to volume demands. So, while the 1989 Lincoln cent in fine condition is usually worth just 1 cent, if it carries a rare variety or transitional planchet error, it could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even upwards of $15,000, especially when certified and sold through the right auction channels. That's why it's so important to look closely, weigh your coins, and compare them to known examples. And if you think you found something special, send it to PCGS, NGC, or ANACS for authentication. It could be the best $30 you ever spent. So there you have it. 2 Lincoln cents, one from 1964, D, and another from 1989, both hiding within billions of minted coins, yet each with the potential to be a life-changing discovery. Whether it's a repunched mint mark, a double die, or an ultra-rare transitional error, the value is in the detail. And your eyes, patience, and curiosity are the most important tools you need. That's what makes this hobby so rewarding. You're not just collecting coins, you're hunting for stories, for history, and maybe even for gold, figuratively and literally. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Lincoln cent world, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to NT Coins World. And hey, if you've ever come across a strange-looking 1964 or 1989 penny, tell us your story in the comments below. You might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. Until next time, you keep collecting, stay curious, and remember, every coin has a tale worth telling.